Welcome in to Make Your Money Matter. I'm your host, Barrett. Today on our show, we're going to talk about Shohei Ohtani, the largest baseball contract in the history of the MLB. With the season kicking off here recently, we're obviously ended spring training. Go Dodgers. For all of you out there, I apologize. But I want to focus on this contract because as a financial planner and an advisor for nearly 20 years now, I'll be candid, I completely nerded out on this contract. And I want to share some lessons that I think we can all actually learn from a baseball player who's about to likely soon be a billionaire. Things about the time value of money, things about planning for your future and tax planning, because the way this contract was structured is unique. So stay tuned. But before we get started, make sure to smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. All right, let's get into it. So again, Shohei Ohtani, he signed the largest MLB contract in the offseason. And again, as we had opening day last week, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, as a financial advisor, again, completely nerded out on this contract. So for those of you who saw the headlines, you probably saw the one main one that was going around everywhere, that Shohei Ohtani signed a $700 million contract. Now, for any of us in the sports world, we tend to read things and be like, oh my gosh, he's going to make $700 million. And that's like our first thought. And we never go through the idea of taxes or how it's structured. Is it front loaded? Is it back loaded? I mean, that's where I think guys like me, advisors, come in, and I like to share that. And one of the things that comes up when you think about a guy like this is you have to understand that Shohei Ohtani or anyone else has likely, and in his case, never signed a $700 million contract before. So the first lesson I want to bring up before I get into how this was structured is making sure that you have a team around you. Because when something matters to you, get the advice it deserves. I always make this analogy, and we're switching sports a little bit here. It's like when someone goes, well, Brad, wait a minute, why would I pay for your advice? Or why would I pay for investment management services? Things like that. And I'm like, well, take golf, for example. You think Tiger Woods, the best golfer in the world, arguably, doesn't know how to read a green or yardage or understand what stick he needs to use depending on how far he is out from the green? I mean, imagine that for a second. So he's got a caddy who pays like 10%. I don't know the exact contract, so don't quote me on that. But it's a typical going rate for a caddy. So think about this. I can almost guarantee you, I don't know this for a fact because I don't know his team, but I can almost guarantee you had a plethora of people around him. Ohtani did, probably a financial advisor, a tax accountant, probably a tax attorney, probably a whole bunch of structuring in place when it comes to this contract. He didn't do it alone. And here's how I know that. Because when I looked at this contract and I went through it, I loved how it was structured. And I'm not to take anything away from Ohtani, to be fair, but I don't believe he had the wherewithal to understand how to do this. I think it was his team. So here's the breakdown of $700 million that he is set to get. And I say for the next 10 years, he's only going to get, and I know it's a large sum of money, but he's only going to get $2 million a year for the first 10 years of his contract. Then, beginning in 2034, 10 years from now, he is set to receive from the Dodgers $68 million a year for another 10 years. The last payment coming when he is 50 years old. Now, for all my baseball fanatics out there, quick sidestep, you probably, if you're listening to this and watching this, you probably think of another MLB player who did a similar contract back in the day. Remember Bobby Bonilla, the Bobby Bonilla day? So he was a player for the New York Mets years ago. He retired in 2001, I believe. Now, mind you, the thing that I bring this up, the New York Mets are still paying Bobby Bonilla $1.19 million a year until 2035. I had one of my great friends did a podcast and a radio show on this, guy named John Hageson. Go take a look at it. He noted in his wonderful podcast and radio show that Bobby Bonilla is going to receive his last check rolling up in his crutch walker with the tennis balls on the bottom. I mean, it's a brilliant contract if you think about it. So whoever structured that back then, Shohei Ohtani's team has really just taken a page almost out of Bobby Bonilla's book. But as I shared at the top of the show, there are some lessons that I think all of us can actually glean from here that are really important when it comes to your assets and your money. Because look, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I wouldn't say any of us are going to necessarily are slated to sign a $700 million contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers. If you are, good for you. But one of the things I want to bring up right out of the gate is planning for your future. So I brought up the team approach in my first lesson of Ohtani's contract. And the second piece here is understanding the concept of planning for your future. Because I think all of us have heard this analogy before when it comes to bird in the hand. Someone who's going to offer you that kind of money. So think about this for a second. Think about Ohtani. If he was just no team, no guys around him to help give him advice, and the Los Angeles Dodgers approached him and said, I'm going to give you $700 million to play for us for 10 years, okay? He's like, probably, well, just give it to me now. Most of us would think that. But if you pause for a second and realize that Shohei Ohtani, he's only 29 years old. Now, I don't know who I'm speaking to right now, and I'm not necessarily saying you're 29 years old, but I mean, that's a very young age. And for him to think into the future is so good. And I credit him and his advisory team to let him, again, pause for a second and think through how he was to structure this contract. So having advisors around you, whether you're Shohei Ohtani or any one of us, matters because, again, like I said before, when something matters to you, receive the advice it deserves. I don't care if it's $100,000, an inheritance, a 401k, you might have a couple $100,000 and you spent 30 years building. That matters to you. Don't get blinded like, oh, I've never going to have $700 million, so I don't need advice or I don't need to pay for that service. You do because it matters to you and it's all relative, right? So the number one lesson here is planning for your future, right? Right off the team approach. So whatever stage or age or season of your life you are in, it matters to find and put in place a good team around you. So another lesson I want to bring up that I actually brought up a couple shows ago and a couple shorts that I've done is actually the time value of money. And I think this contract that Shohei put together here illustrates that perfectly. Friends, we all know that compound interest works for us. Now, it works against us if we don't take into consideration things like inflation. So it's important to talk with your advisor about that. So when you structure things that aren't aligned with your monetary worth within the contract, it can work against you if you don't structure it correctly because things like inflation can eat away at things. Things like taxes can eat away at things. I'm going to bring that up here in a second as well. But understand that the time value of money, and I say this often, it's about time in the market, not timing the market. And a lot of my clients and investors in this world are all chasing some sort of investment or this, that, and the other. But let me be very clear about something. The number one commodity that you can invest in always is time. And outside of the money world, that's true in life. I say this often that, money returns, believe it or not, but time doesn't. Understanding that actually matters. And what Shohei Ohtani did, I think in his contract, was he understood that if he spreads it out over time and realizes it over time, he can keep more of it. Don't forget the old saying, right? It's not always what you make, it's what you keep. And I think whoever was speaking to him on his advisory team really, I think, pressed home that notion. And the last thing I want to bring up that I was looking into in this contract that I think we all can learn a lesson from is taxes and ultimately tax planning. Now, you'll notice that the team Shohei Ohtani signed with, that I said before on the top of the show, was the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't know about you, but California is not exactly known to be a low tax state. I live in California. In fact, I'm about 45 miles north of Dodger Stadium. More to the concept here for all of us to learn, I think, is understanding time and place. If you were to sign this contract, let's say in Florida for the Florida Marlins in a state tax-free state, it's a little bit different of a subject matter, but we're not. We're in arguably one of the largest, highest state tax environments in the union, other than, say, New York. And so for him and his team to realize the effects of tax planning on that large sum of money and spreading it out over time, how they did, I think is a brilliant move. So the integration and ultimately the comprehensiveness, if you will, when it comes to any decision you're making with money. And again, I'm not saying we're all signing a $700 million contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers. What I am saying is that when it matters to you, it deserves to receive the advice, okay? Comprehensive advice, integrated advice. I mean, I can only share here for us at One Capital Management, what we do for our clients is making sure that when we're talking about a subject matter with our clients, we're also talking with the subject matter experts. Bringing in your estate planning attorney, for example, bringing in maybe your insurance planner, your tax planner, your CPA. All of these things matter when it comes to structuring the right investment portfolio, the right financial plan. No different than Shohei Ohtani's team. And so again, just to kind of put a bow on this here, if it matters to you, receive the advice it deserves. So these lessons I think we all can glean from, just to wrap it up, is planning for your future, understanding the value of money, understanding how taxes impact whatever contract, whatever income, or whatever investment you are making, and ultimately building the team around you to create what Shohei Ohtani, I think, did in a really great contract that I think will serve him well, not just during his playing years, but into his retirement. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that today. If you did, make sure to subscribe to our show so you don't miss a single episode. And always remember to make your money matter.